Hi everyone! Yes, I'm not on my settee again, doing my proper introductions because I forgot yet again, and to be fair, my room is a mess, and you know what, this is just faster. So you have editing Megan again like the last video, which isn't good because this is the last part of my Coraline research series and it's going to be awesome. We are going to be discussing fan theories today. I thought I'd save that one till last because it's pretty crazy and I'm wondering what you guys will think when you watch it and which ones you'll agree with. But yes, I suppose we can just get on with it because I have not got my script and unscripted intros and endings do not usually work out for me, but let's see how the video goes. I hope you enjoy this very last research video for Coraline and we'll be moving on to other things.
The Well Portal. Is it me, or does the portal to the other world and the view down the well look peculiarly similar? This is only in the film, because in the book there's a corridor behind the drawing room rather than the tunnel we see in the film. So this theory is purely for the film of Coraline. So, if the well and the portal look so similar, does this mean the other well could be at the end of that well too? Wybie said to Coraline that if someone looked up from the bottom of the well, they would see stars. Why was this included? In the other world, did you notice that it was always night? Now I assumed this was because Coraline entered the other world at night, but maybe that is its permanent state. Therefore, Wybie's line to Coraline might link the well to the other world in this way. Also, at the end, the key and the hand get put down the well, like they are being returned to where they came from, and by putting the cover back over the top of the well, they are now sealed up and can't get out. Miss Spink and Miss Forcible warn Coraline near the beginning that the well is dangerous, and in the book it reads, "There was also a well. On the first day Coraline's family moved in, Miss Spink and Miss Forcible made a point of telling Coraline how dangerous the well was, and they warned her to be sure she kept away from it. Perhaps this can be a nod to the fact that the well connects to the other world too." Another thing connected to this theory is that a well isn't very big. There is limited space. We see in Coraline that the beldam hasn't created anything outside the Pink Palace grounds. It is turned into white space that Coraline and the cat discover when they start walking away. The bug theory. The praying mantis is used as a picture frame holder and as a ride for the other father to go on with Coraline to entertain her and then attack her later in the film. Though the praying mantis might not be dangerous to people, they are deadly to their prey. They are patient, still, and invisible until their target comes close enough to strike, and then they are quick to attack and hold in a death-like grip. Does this remind you of someone? The beldam has been very patient. I spoke about how Wybie found a doll of Coraline at his grandmother's flat that is supposed to be as old as her. Now that's what you call patience. The beldam doesn't appear threatening at first. She simply tries to lure them in, get them closer and gain their trust before showing her true colours and never letting them leave. Dragonfly bunting was in Coraline's bedroom. In folklore they were referred to as the devil's darning needles, which makes sense considering the beldam is quite the elaborate seamstress, and we could maybe categorise her as the devil. Apparently, dragonflies in folklore were known to sew up the mouths of naughty kids, and the beldam literally does this to Wybie in the film. There are beetles and cockroaches as most of the furniture in the drawing room of the other world. Though they are all around, they are not the most noticeable at times. I mentioned the wallpaper in my Easter egg section. It kind of reflects the reality that insects probably are everywhere, but we just don't see them. Spiders are a huge part of the film near the end. The other mother is literally more like a terrifying version of a spider by the end of the film, which is scary anyway. The fact that the beldam only seems to eat bugs also points to her being a monstrous spider as well. Spiderwebs cover everything in the Beldam studio at the beginning, and by the end everything is a spiderweb that the Beldam has created to entrap Coraline and prevent her from escaping. The Beldam's skeletal body and her cracked face kind of looks like a spiderweb pattern as well. Apparently spiders in folklore can represent fear in a dream, and even coming away from folklore. Freud, as in the neurologist, believed that dreaming of spiders represents the mother that devours her children, which she does through possessiveness or guilt. Gaiman took devouring children to a whole other level with the Beldam, who literally eats the children she captures. Coraline is literally wearing a bug hairpin throughout the whole film. Maybe this is a foreshadowing of the Beldam's true nature before we eventually see her at the end of the film as she naturally is. The whole bug thing isn't used in the book, but I do wonder why there is so much use of it in the film. Henry Selick put so much detail into Coraline with loads of Easter eggs, so surely he had his reasons for producing the sets to all have this bug influence. I've laid out all of the things in Coraline's to do with bugs and analysed them, but what do you think the meaning behind it is? The Beldam's powers and presence in the real world. Some believe that the Beldam was there before the house was even built, and if the well theory is to be believed, the mansion was built right near it and the Beldam saw the opportunity to have a more fulfilling life and start making a collection of souls. However, we know the film is set in Ashland, Oregon, which was settled about 150 years ago, as was the Pink Palace. Perhaps the Beldam was the original owner of the house and she was the actual person at first. We see a potential clue of this because the garden in the real world seems to show a version of the Beldam's appearance. If she was the first owner of the house, that's pretty fancy to settle in a house being built and it's a mansion overlooking the whole town. Beldam has several meanings. I assumed this primarily linked to witch because she has powers, but its origins also connect to pretty woman or grand dame. And if she owned that mansion, she certainly was grand back in the day. It also points to her being a human at first because we do know that, once upon a time, she had a mother because she swore on her life making a promise to Coraline. Oh yes, I put her in there myself, and when I found her trying to crawl out, I put her back. Why did she kill her mother? She wasn't just zapped into existence, so where did she come from? The human theory makes sense. But how did she become this thing now? She's seemingly trapped down there in the other world, even though I pointed out the hand thing earlier. If she had a mother, then can the Beldam reproduce too as her monstrous self now? Anyway, maybe the Beldam fell down the well. If she lived in the house, it was very close to her property. If the well theory matches up, she could have discovered the other world and turned it into her own. Perhaps she can feed off the magic of this other world for a bit, and that allows her to live for ages, but then needs children in order to maintain that magic by collecting their souls. This could also explain her appearance. She's skeletal in her real appearance by the end of the film. Maybe it's because she's running out of magic and her hands have been replaced by sewing needles, not because she's a seamstress, although that's a good substitute if you spend all your time sewing anyway, but it's because she started to decompose and she needs replacements for what is starting to decay away due to the lack of children to lure in over the duration. We know she has magical powers, whether they are hers or from the other world. She is capable of shape-shifting. She can manipulate everything around her. She changes the weather and builds the other world according to the child she wants to take, so it matches their wishes. She can show images in mirrors and trap people behind them just like she does with Coraline, and because she can do both, we don't know whether she trapped her parents behind the mirror or if it was just an illusion. I believe it was an illusion though, because if she can just take two random people from the real world, why wouldn't she just take Coraline immediately? She sews dolls to send them up to the children and make them curious. If she can send things up, perhaps she is the one who crafted the door in the house as the other place to enter into the other world. Because surely children aren't going to voluntarily jump into a well. However, if she was able to build that door, What's to stop her from building another entrance with another key? Her hand was able to get into the real world with Coraline as she escaped, so why can't the beldam just escape from her little world into the real world any time the children open the door? She could just disguise herself as she does and go out. Although I think the button eyes would be a big problem. She could be the next greatest fashion designer with her Edward Scissor-like hands. Perhaps it's because she can't leave the other world anymore, or if she did, she would just end up dying. If the human theory is correct, she wouldn't be able to survive aged 150 in the real world. There is also other people who believe that the beldam manipulating the other world and her appearance actually takes a toll on her, and that's why things start to disintegrate back into their normal form after a while. Although I argue the case that maybe things start going back to normal as Coraline finds out more information about this other world, and that is why the other mother does everything she can to make the other characters not talk much, like when she stitches up Wybie's mouth, and in the book she is always shushing the other father. The Ghost Children. Now, I assumed that once the beldam convinced the children to stay and sewed buttons into their eyes, she would eat them, like a spider eats their prey. But another theory is that the beldam actually sews buttons into their eyes so they are blinded, and they don't see her true form and the other world around them filled with everything they could ever want disappear. She wouldn't have to use her magic anymore. They stay with the beldam and she doesn't eat them. She wants them there as company and for entertainment. I mean, she eats bugs. Maybe that's all she needs. She can control everything around her, but maybe she wants someone who is themselves and not just made by herself. We know the rats are her minions who can go back and forth between the worlds as well. Anyway, that was a detour, so the other mother might have wanted company. Perhaps she did want someone to nurture like a mother would. If the children are blinded and can't see the beldam for what she really is, they might continue to like her if she treated them well. We know she can show them a good time, but then the child grows up and eventually dies. Maybe the beldam is sad, but she kept their eyes like a little trinket for remembrance. You know the saying, the eyes are the windows to your soul. That kind of matches what's happening. The beldam wants their soul to begin with. Maybe this is why she wants to replace them with buttons. She wants to own their soul. Luckily, Coraline gets them off her, then the children can be at peace by the end of it. Because the child passes away, the beldam has to wait for a new child to move in, which they do, and she lures them in and it happens all over again. The last girl she takes is a twin to Wybie's grandmother, which also carries us nicely into the next theory. Wybie's grandmother. So, Wybie's grandmother had a twin, and it is believed that she was the last girl to be taken by the beldam. We can see this at the beginning of the film, because the beldam dissects the doll she made of her last victim to turn into Coraline. What did the grandmother think of her twin's disappearance so long ago? Did her sister come back from the other world and tell her about it? Did she also visit? If so, could the beldam manipulate the world so that Wybie's grandmother can see everything beautiful as well? Or is she confronted with a grey spiderweb world and freaks out? If she knows the beldam got a hold of her sister, is that why she stayed so close to the house? Did she have hope that her sister would come back? Why did she have the doll of Coraline? I figured the doll was always sent to the child to make them curious and allow the beldam to monitor them. Did the beldam send it to the grandmother's house to taunt her or something? If the grandmother knew about the beldam, why didn't she try to warn Coraline? Wybie apparently found the doll in a trunk. Maybe that was the grandmother's version of helping. By putting the doll away in a chest, the beldam wouldn't be able to see anything through the button eyes. But then Wybie found it and sent it to her, so that didn't work. Surely Wybie would have questioned his grandmother about it though. Did she just choose not to warn Coraline in case the beldam decided to come after her grandson instead? Apparently Wybie's grandmother is the person who is renting out the flat to the Jones family. Maybe the grandmother figured out that the beldam would want another child soon and preemptively got a couple with one child to move into the flat, pretty much offering up Coraline to the beldam. whereas Wybie would have been the nearest child to the Pink Palace. My question is that does Wybie's grandmother own the whole mansion? Perhaps in the day where her family lived there, it was a full property, then she converted it into flats because that's what happens a lot with big houses nowadays. If that's the case, notice how the other two neighbours are adults with no children. It's like Wybie's grandmother purposefully rents the houses just to adults. Until this time, of course. The cat. We barely know anything about the cat in the book or the film. He is very much the most mysterious character in my opinion. He also seems to know a lot about the beldam and her lair. Cats chase mice, and mice can go into the other world. The cat would probably chase them and discover the different portals to the other world, and that's how he gets there. Perhaps he learnt a lot about the place over the years. In the film, the cat always seems to hang around Wybie. He also seems quite loyal to Coraline despite his reluctance to give her straight answers. I believe the next theory is a little out there, but other fans really do believe it. Apparently the cat could be Wybie's great-grandfather, as in Wybie's grandmother's dad. Wow, I swear the family tree of the Lovarts are way more complex than the Joneses. Anyway, if this is the case, perhaps the grandmother's dad found his way of going into a portal to the beldam. Maybe he knew what happened to her, but the beldam caught him and turned him into a cat. She is a witch after all. He wasn't a child, so she didn't exactly want him, so why not turn him into a cat? Or perhaps the beldam challenged him to a game to win back his daughter's soul and he lost, so then she turned him into a cat. The cat tells Coraline that the beldam loves games. Maybe that's how he knows, because he lost one to her. He also told Coraline that she doesn't play fair, so maybe the beldam cheated in the game she played with him. Also, the cat helps Coraline retrieve a soul from the rat that steals it in the circus. This soul happens to be the twin's soul. He might have particularly wanted that one saving if it was his daughter's. In that case, the cat was probably only helping Coraline to help his daughter, but I'm sure he would still have wanted to help Coraline to be safe. Or he could just be a cat. Who knows? Coraline never left. This is a scarier theory which I don't like because the child in me says that films must have happy endings, but nevertheless, here it is. Coraline never left the other world. It was simply more of the other mother's visual manipulations. I do not like this, but there are some inconsistencies in the film particularly that could support this theory. Coraline in the film doesn't go back through the tunnel the first time meeting the other mother. The scene just cuts to Coraline waking up in her normal-looking bedroom. The seasons seem to change in a matter of days, which doesn't match up the timeline considering it's seemingly only a week maybe. It's supposed to be the summer holidays, but it chucks it down. I mean, I know the book is set in England, which has gloomy weather at the best of times, but in the film, they're in Oregon. Apparently the weather in Oregon during August, which I'm going to assume this is the month it's set in because it is near the end of the summer holidays for Coraline, reaches up to 29 degrees and 13 degrees at the lowest. August is Oregon's hottest month, even if it does start to cool down when reaching September. Why is it raining and gloomy so much? The side characters when Coraline supposedly returns to the real world are strangely helpful, such as Miss Spink and Miss Forcible having the hagstone, and the cat giving little tips here and there. Also, Coraline's parents show up in the mirror silently asking for help, which is clearly the Bedlam's doing. I have mentioned before that I don't think Coraline's parents were actually kidnapped, and that the beldam is just using an illusion. We see the beldam uses mirrors to her advantage, like when she shoves Coraline through the mirror as a timeout. But how does she use the same mirror magic to show Coraline her parents in the real world? Unless Coraline is still in the other world already with the beldam. I mentioned that the real world garden is shaped like the beldam's face. Maybe it is like that because they are in the other world still. Right at the end of the film, we see the cat disappear behind the signpost to the Pink Palace, like there is still magic going on, which would be the case if they are all, in fact, still in the other world. The other YB is the beldam spy. It seems like the other YB tries to fight against the beldam and is trying to help Coraline, but that might not be the case. We know that the rats are definitely the beldam's minions, but we also know that the beldam can spy on people through button eyes, and the other YB has button eyes. If this is the case, then the same could be said about the other father too, but I'm talking about the other YB because he accompanies Coraline the most through the other world. This could all connect back to the theory of Coraline never having left the other world. Perhaps YB was ordered just to make it seem like Coraline had escaped, but that wasn't true. I mean, the tunnel which YB sends her through is nothing like the Bright Portal, which I just contributed to the other mother not bothering with her powers anymore. But it could all just be an elaborate hoax. Quickly going back to the other father though, perhaps he really was trying not to attack Coraline, and we can see where that got him. The beldam was not happy and she controlled him and made him do these things, so this means she could easily be controlling YB. Also, when YB takes Coraline to the dusty portal to escape, he refuses to go with her, demonstrating what would happen if he tried. But we know that isn't true because the mice manage to get through to bring the beldam the key to the door, which she promptly swallows. Disgusting. A similar theory to this one is about the cat being a spy for the beldam because the cat can go to and from the other world. The soul dust. Now this theory kind of contradicts the last theory, and I don't know which one I'm leaning towards the most. Basically, the beldam can use magic, but she can't just create something out of nothing, surely. She needs to use something else and then put an illusion on it, perhaps. Well, how did she create all of the people in the other world? Some believe that the beldam is using the souls of the children to create people, and they call it soul dust. Very apt. I talk about YB blowing his hand away when showing Coraline that he can't go with her. Maybe that's because soul dust wouldn't work in the real world, so what he's saying is true. Also, if this is the case and the people in the other world are made up of soul dust, perhaps that's why they can resist the beldam's control if they try hard enough. I don't know what that says about Mr. Bobinsky, Miss Spink and Miss Forcible, because they clearly didn't mind trying to harm Coraline and they stuck with the plan of luring her in with their performances. But anyway, this could be why the other YB and the other father can battle the beldam just a bit, especially if her grip on magic is getting weaker because she needs another soul to carry on living in the other world, and that's why she is all skeletal and decomposed, as I have discussed before. Also, if YB insists that the soul dust can't go into the real world, it explains why the mice can, because they aren't made of soul dust. Therefore, it would break up the other theory's reasoning. The sweetie jars. I'm not going to lie, I didn't even notice the dates above the sweet jars that Miss Forcible offered to Coraline on her second visit, and some say that are the dates that each child got taken by the beldam. It actually makes sense if we look at the ghost children's clothing, which I happen to love that the fact that is a theory that can come from the clothes they are wearing. Definitely my kind of research. The loose-fitting gown with a drop waistline the taller ghost girl wears matches the gowns potentially worn in the 1920s, and this becomes even more in line with the 1920s because the outfit also consists of a flat collar, a large hat, and slippers. The ghost boy appears to be wearing ragged, high-waisted trousers and suspenders, which could possibly connect to a working-class boy from the 1930s. However, I do have to question this, because if he was working class, what is he doing in a huge mansion? It is not out of the question that he could work in the house though, and discover the door that way, or maybe he was unlucky enough to go through the other portal and fell down the well. Lastly, it comes to YB's grandmother's twin. We see Mrs. Lovatt in a vintage photo standing by her twin as a young girl. This is the ghost girl in the other world, so with the age of the grandmother, it fits that they could have been in the Pink Palace in the 60s. I really like this theory, and knowing the attention to detail that Selick gives in his films, it is entirely possible that this was his idea to be put in.
So, that was it. Which fan theories do you agree with and which do you think are a bit too far-fetched? Well, you know my opinion anyway. Thank you so much for anybody who's been watching this series or whatnot, and if you've only watched this one, then there's other ones. Obviously, they don't all need to be watched. It's just fun. And I'll be moving on to other things next time, so that's it. It's like the end of an era after all of these videos, but yes. Onwards and upwards. Thank you everyone for watching. If you want to look at my other social medias, they're listed below. Bye!